You don't see many young teenage defenders playing in the Championship, really, do you? And he's done brilliantly.
So there's a lot there that Michael O'Neill has to answer for. And if he is still in charge come the start of next season, then he won't have long to get it right.
I think many Derby fans were just happy to have a football club to support at the end of this whole thing. And it looks like now that is going to be the case. And that's a big relief for not just Derby fans, but the whole of football.
Everything leading up to his spell at Cardiff, he should not have hit the numbers he did hit. And he also got international recognition for England as well, which is absolutely incredible.
So, yeah, definitely. Bournemouth could miss out on the automatics. It will be a massive, for the lack of a better term, bottle job if they do mess it up.
When we were very old podcasters, we'll bring up the story of Barnsley when they got into the playoffs, when we're all grey and slightly more receded, shall we say.
Well, some of us are already getting that way. Why, hello, welcome back to another episode of the Stopwatch. It's the Championship show with a little twist. It's 5 topics, a 2-minute timer, and 2 hosts. We're Ran and Justin from the Second Tier podcast. Let's get right into it. Justin, who's been the most impressive loan player so far this season? It's got to be said, the standard in the Championship this season has been remarkable. But who has been the cream of the crop for you?
Going to go with Levi Colwill on loan from Chelsea at Huddersfield. He's been absolutely brilliant in that defence. I know he's had a couple of injuries this season, but when he's played, he's really excelled. And the fact that he's just 19 years old, playing his first full season at senior level, is quite astonishing, really. And he's playing like an experienced pro alongside Matty Pearson and Tom Lees. And I think he's really added a lot of balance to that Huddersfield back three when they've deployed one.
It is amazing, isn't it, that this is his first full season at senior level. It doesn't look like it, does it?
No.
He's been effortlessly just slipped in there, and every time anything's come up against him, he's dealt with it really well. He's been coming up against big burly centre forwards in the Championship this season, but he's a teenager just dealing with them effortlessly. You don't see many young teenage defenders playing in the Championship, really, do you? And he's done brilliantly in his first full season. The player who stood out for me is James Garner, someone who doesn't get as much praise in the Forest side as the likes of Brennan Johnson, Jed Spence, etc., but is really developing into a marvellous player and is getting better at a frightening rate, quite similar actually to the rest of the Forest side. He's got this technical ability that makes him dictate the game so well. And even Bruno Fernandes was harping about him on Twitter the other day. I don't know if you saw that, but he's a really, really great talent, isn't he, Justin?
He's a player I rate highly. And do you think he's not getting the plaudits he deserves because of the other lone player, Jed Spence, excelling as well this season?
I think it's mainly because of his position. You got, Spence storming down the wing and Brennan Johnson doing the same and adding goals to his name, whereas Garner is just the playmaker in the middle of the park, who's just dictating things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it goes under the radar, the fact that he does control midfield the way he does, and obviously Ryan Yates, that partnership there with Ryan Yates, it really does complement each other. They do a really good job together in that midfield.
It definitely does. Justin, what's the next topic?
It's been a big week for Derby this season. So what is your reaction to the potential takeover?
Relief. The fact that this may finally be over after what feels like years is just, it's such a weight off my shoulders because I've had enough of just people asking me about what the hell's going on at Derby and not having an answer for them because I just don't know. But it looks like there is finally a light at the end of the tunnel. American businessman Chris Kirchner is the preferred bidder for the club. Still a few hurdles to go through before this is actually sorted out, but I imagine it's also a big relief for you, Justin.
Oh yeah, I think every conversation I have with every fellow Derbyan, if that's a word, is normally the takeover comes into it. We don't ask about family; it's always the takeover. What's going on with the takeover? Like they know, I think I know more, but it is complete relief. To be able to get to this stage. As you say, still a long way to go, a lot of hurdles to jump over, but this is a serious sign of progression and one that is long overdue.
Yeah, once this takeover is actually complete, which fingers crossed it will be, there's still a lot of questions that need to be answered. You've got stuff like the stadium, what's happening with these creditors that Derby owe a lot of money to, which players are actually going to be at the club next season. So Chris Kirchner is going to have his hands full, without a doubt, if he is the man who's going to be in charge of Derby next season. But I think many Derby fans were just happy to have a football club to support at the end of this whole thing. And it looks like now that is going to be the case. And that's a big relief for not just Derby fans, but the whole of football. Justin, with the likes of Sheffield United, Middlesbrough, Fulham, Blackburn, Forest, God, that's a horrible fixture list, isn't it? With that as the fixture list for Bournemouth coming up, do you think they could miss out on the automatics?
I think that the West Brom game the other night was a big step for them to try and get over, and they failed. They were well beaten by a team that looked really poor at the weekend in West Brom. So I do think they could miss out on the automatics. As you say, this is a big run of games against some decent teams. That's probably underselling it. Very good teams. And for me, they failed that first test. So it's a big game at the weekend against Sheffield United. And if they don't come out of that with a decent result, Bournemouth, then I do have serious question marks over a top 2 finish.
Well, it's an 8-point gap right now, which is quite a big gap in a promotion race. But you consider Bournemouth are just so inconsistent, and they're coming up against teams who are much better than West Brom, in particular Sheffield United, Middlesbrough, Fulham, and Forest. It's definitely catchable, isn't it? Especially because Forest in particular are in such good form.
Yep.
So yeah, definitely Bournemouth could miss out on the automatics. It will be a massive, for the lack of a better term, bottle job if they do mess it up. But there's no other way of summing it up, is it? If they don't get automatically promoted this season after being up and around there for so long, it will be a bottle job, won't it?
Well, without doubt, as you say, with the quality of the squad that they've got as well, which is going unnoticed in this conversation, yeah, it would be a massive bottle job. And would I be surprised at that? No, Scott Parker's got previous.
It's a significant chance, a very significant chance when it didn't look like it too long ago. Justin, what's next topic?
Which club do you think needs a change in boss the most this summer, or even before the summer?
I'll go with Paul Ince at Reading. I think many people aren't expecting him to stay on anyway because he's only got the job until the end of the season. I imagine he probably wants the job, but I think for the greater good at Reading, they should maybe look towards someone else, someone who's got a long-term vision for the club as well, and someone who's not so obsessed with playing his own son. I think that's what Reading needs to do at this point. They need to have a long-term plan, and whether they stay up this season or not, obviously it looks like they will do at the moment. There's still question marks about whether they'll be able to stay up next season as well, because you're losing 3 poor teams. Well, 2 poor teams and 1 with a massive points deduction. And you're getting 3 teams coming up who look like they should be very good, whoever they may be. So there's a lot of question marks over Reading, and I think they need a long-term appointment. Would you agree, Justin?
Yeah, definitely. They need to look to the long term. Is Paul Ince that man? I don't think he is, so I would agree with you. So yeah, I think a long-term appointment is needed. But do I have faith in the Reading hierarchy to get to the right decision? I don't think so, no.
I certainly wouldn't have faith if Paul Ince is still the man in charge next season. Justin, who do you think needs a change in boss?
Yeah, this is a manager I've spoken a lot about recently, and it's Stoke City's Michael O'Neill. I don't think he can take the club any further than he has. He's had 2 full seasons now where they've peaked very early on in the season and then become an incredibly inconsistent team after that. And unfortunately, that's resulted in 2 finishes way below expectation. He has had a good enough squad, even with injuries. He has had a good enough squad this season to at least be competing higher mid-table, even in and around the playoffs. So for him to currently find themselves in 15th, Stoke City that is, then yeah, quite disappointing. And I think a change of manager could be on the cards or should be on the cards if they are to keep going.
Keep in mind, next season, he'll have Harry Souttar back. He'll probably have Nick Powell back if his contract situation is sorted out, which I think it has been. Tyrese Campbell, fully fit. He's worked well with them in the past when they've all been fully fit. I think he can do that again next season.
He might be able to, but what if the team picks up injuries again? He's shown this season especially that he cannot cope without his key players, and that for me is not a manager good enough at this level. You've got to make use of your squad. And
show me another manager who'd be able to cope with 3 of his best players missing for various points of the season.
I don't think it's down to that. He's had good enough squad players to come in and make do, and he's not changed the system either. So there's a lot there that Michael O'Neill has to answer for. And if he is still in charge come the start of next season, then he won't have long to get it right.
Finally, Justin, it's second tier retro time. What is your biggest surprise story from Championship history? We're looking for players or clubs who have either overachieved or underachieved. What do you think?
Yeah, this is a struggle one. A struggle this was. I'm going with a player. I'm going to go with Jay Bothroyd in the career of Jay Bothroyd at Cardiff City, because everything leading up to his spell at Cardiff, he should not have hit the numbers he did hit. And he also got international recognition for England as well, which is absolutely incredible. But as I say, really below par spells at Perugia, at Wolves and Charlton. And again, as I say, did not look like a good player at all. He looked like a squad player at best. He comes in and absolutely tears the league up and becomes one of the best number 9s in Championship history. One that doesn't get enough mentions, actually. And as I say, Fabio Capello called him up in 2010 to get an England cap, which was one of the first for a Championship player. I know Dave Nugent's done it in the past. But yeah, Jay Bothroyd for me, just weird how his career panned out.
I think his England cap has a lot to do with England's striking options at the point, which were lacking a bit, to be fair. But Bothroyd had a fantastic season, didn't he? I'm not going to disagree with you there that it was a bit of a surprise when he came out of nowhere and was as good as he was for Cardiff. The biggest surprise story for me is one that's still fresh in the memory for me, and it's Barnsley from last season, getting into the playoffs after last season. Any Barnsley fan would have taken safety in the Championship, wouldn't they? Especially after the terrible start that they had under Gerhard Struber. Then Valérien Ismaël came in and they got into the playoffs after winning a remarkable amount of games, of course, with this unique style of play. Sorry, I'm getting choked up just thinking about it. And they were amazing. And it led to them getting into the playoffs, which I don't think any Barnsley fan at any point over the course of the season thought would be possible until right at the end when it actually did become a reality. But I that Barnsley team will always live fondly in my memory, Justin, because it was a magical story, wasn't it? And it's a shame where the club is now.
Yeah, it really is a cool story, and one that we'll be telling for a long time. I think, in 10 years' time, and when we're very old podcasters, we'll bring up the story of Barnsley when they got into the playoffs, when we're all grey and slightly more receded, shall we say?
Well, some of us are already getting that way. And there we go. That wraps it up for another episode of the Stopwatch. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And also drop us a like if you've enjoyed. And please subscribe for more content like this. We have been the Second Tier Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Second Tier Pod. I'm Ryan Dilk-Swan. This guy over here is Justin Peach 27. But you will be back again next week. And thank you for watching.